It was the third Sunday in May. The dining room smelled of overcooked meatloaf and cheap red wine. My father sat at the head of the table, his tie loosened, swirling his glass while my brother, Ryan, held court. Ryan always held court. He treated Sunday dinner like a press conference where he was the only headline. "They're giving me the Northwest Territory," Ryan announced, stabbing a fork into his potatoes. "The VP pulled me aside personally, said I've got the killer instinct they need. It comes with a 5% raise." My father beamed. It was the look he reserved exclusively for his son, a mixture of pride and validation. "That's it," he said, slapping the table. "That's how you climb the ladder. You grab it with both hands." My mother nodded, her eyes shining. "We're so proud of you, Ryan. You're really building a life." I sat across from them, pushing peas around my plate. I was the ghost at the banquet. Then the spotlight swung to me. It wasn't a warm light. It was an interrogation lamp. Ryan smirked. "So, Maya, how's what is it you do again? The website stuff?" "It's software engineering," I said quietly. Right. The coding hobby," my father corrected, chuckling. "You know, Stratton is hiring receptionists. It's entry level, but it's a real company. Benefits, a 401k. You can't live in a fantasy world forever, sweetheart. Ryan is buying a condo. What are you building?" I didn't answer. I took a sip of water to wash down the dry meatloaf. I didn't tell him that while Ryan was celebrating a 5% raise on a $60,000 salary, I had just closed a Series C funding round that valued my fantasy world at $340 million. Before we get to the moment my father walked into my lobby and realized his mistake, I want to ask you, have you ever been the black sheep of your family? I had just closed a Series C funding round that valued my fantasy world at $340 million. Before we get to the moment my father walked into my lobby and realized his mistake, I want to ask you, have you ever been the black sheep of your family? Drop a yes in the comments if you know exactly how that feels. I read every single one. My name is Maya Lin. To my family, I am a cautionary tale. I drive a 2016 Hyundai Elantra with a permanent dent in the passenger door and a check engine light that I've ignored for 6 months. I live in a 4th-floor walk-up in a neighborhood that real estate agents generously call up and coming. My furniture is a collection of Craigslist finds and IKEA misfits. When my aunt asks what I do, I tell her I fix computers or handle data entry. I keep it vague. I keep it boring. I let them believe I'm scraping by because it is easier than explaining the truth. The truth is that I am the founder and CEO of Lumina Solutions. Lumina isn't a computer fixing shop. It is an enterprise-grade cloud infrastructure platform. We process data for 3 of the largest logistics companies in North America. I have 312 employees. Last fiscal year, we generated $92 million in revenue. My personal net worth, tied up in equity and assets I don't talk about, is hovering north of $40 million. I built this empire in the dark. I started in 2018 coding in a library basement because I couldn't afford Wi-Fi at home. I wore the same Goodwill blazer to every investor pitch for 2 years. I missed my best friend's wedding because I was debugging a server crash that threatened to wipe out our first major client. I ate instant oatmeal for dinner so often that the smell of it still makes me nauseous. And I never told my parents. Why? Because in 2019, when I landed my first 6-figure contract, I tried. I brought a bottle of champagne to Sunday dinner. I started to say, "Mom, Dad, I think I've made it." Before I could finish, my father interrupted me to answer a call from Ryan, who had just leased a BMW. My father spent 20 minutes talking about the German engineering of a car Ryan didn't even own yet. The champagne stayed corked. I took it home, drank it alone in my studio apartment, and made a silent vow. If they wanted a failure, I would give them a failure. It was the only role they seemed comfortable with me playing. Hiding the company was actually the easy part. My parents didn't read TechCrunch, they didn't follow venture capital news, and they certainly didn't think a computer girl like me was capable of making headlines. Hiding the money, however, was a different kind of torture. For years, I played a twisted game of Robin Hood, stealing from my own secret fortune to bail out the very people who mocked me. It started small, a grocery run here, a utility bill there, but as their entitlement grew, so did the price tag. The first major incident was in the winter of 2021. A storm blew 3 shingles off my parents' roof, leading to a leak that threatened to rot the master bedroom ceiling. My father panicked. He didn't have the liquidity to fix it because he had just co-signed a loan for Ryan's investment property, a duplex that was currently sitting empty and hemorrhaging cash. "It's going to be $4,000, Maya," my mother cried over the phone. "We might have to dip into the retirement fund." I didn't let them do that. I transferred $4,500 to my mother's account 10 minutes later. I told her I had picked up a freelance gig, fixing a server for a local law firm. She didn't ask how a freelance gig paid that much in a day. She didn't ask to see an invoice. She just took the money. That night at dinner, my father raised a toast to Ryan for helping inspect the damage, completely ignoring the fact that I was the one who paid to repair it. Then there was Ryan. My brother lived a champagne life on a beer budget, fueled by credit cards and the delusion that his next promotion would fix everything. Last July, he got himself into a jam. He had maxed out 2 cards trying to impress a new girlfriend with trips to Cabo and bottle service in downtown clubs. The minimum payments were drowning him. He didn't go to Dad, he came to me. He cornered me in the kitchen while I was washing dishes. "Maya, look, I'm in a tight spot. Just a cash flow issue. I need $2,500 to clear a balance before it hits my credit score. I'll pay you back when the quarterly bonus hits." I wrote him a check. Not because I believed him, I knew that bonus was a myth, but because I knew if I didn't, he would ask Mom, and she would give it to him even if it meant skipping her heart medication. Ryan took the check. He didn't say thank you. He looked at the amount, nodded, and said, "Cool. Hey, don't mention this to the folks, okay? It's embarrassing." 2 weeks later, he bought a new set of golf clubs. He never paid me back. The final straw before the breakdown wasn't even for a human. It was for Buster, our family's golden retriever. He swallowed a squeaky toy and needed emergency surgery. The vet quoted $1,800. My father stood in the vet's waiting room, wringing his hands, talking about putting the dog down because money doesn't grow on trees. I couldn't watch it. I walked to the front desk, pulled out my black Amex, the heavy metal one that invites questions if you look too closely, and paid the bill in full. I told my parents the vet had allowed a payment plan. They were so relieved they didn't question why there was no paperwork to sign. In total, over a span of 24 months, I funneled approximately $26,000 into the family ecosystem. That's a down payment on a house. That's a luxury car. To me, it was less than a week's interest on my portfolio, but the principle of it was rotting me from the inside out. They treated me like an ATM that they also felt sorry for. They took my cash with one hand and patted me on the head with the other, whispering about how they hoped I'd find a nice husband to take care of me since my career was clearly going nowhere. They consumed my success without ever tasting it, digesting my hard work while spitting out my dignity. I kept doing it. because I wanted them to love me. I thought if I just solved enough problems, eventually they would look at me and see capability. I thought money was a language they understood. But I was wrong. To them, money was only valid if it came with a title. Since I didn't have the title, my money was just magic. It appeared, it fixed things, and it was forgotten. Until that Wednesday in May. The Bank of Maya didn't close with a bang. There was no screaming match, no tears, no dramatic ultimatum. It ended on a Tuesday afternoon because of a steak lunch. I was sitting in the War Room, Lumina's secure conference center, handling a level 4 crisis. A fiber optic line had been severed outside our primary data center in Virginia, threatening to take 2 Fortune 500 clients offline. I had the CTO on one screen, the legal team on another, and I was directing traffic like an air traffic controller in a hurricane. My personal phone buzzed against the mahogany table. Dad. I silenced it. It buzzed again. 2:14 p.m. I flipped it over. At 2:17 p.m., while I was authorizing a 6-figure redundant server reroute, it buzzed a third time. Then a text notification popped up. Emergency. Call now. My heart hammered. I thought Mom had fallen. I thought Ryan had crashed his car. I signaled to my COO to take over the feed, stepped into the hallway, and dialed my father. Dad? Is everyone okay? Where have you been? He didn't sound scared. He sounded annoyed. I've been calling for 10 minutes. Look, I'm at Miller's Steakhouse with Ryan and his new boss. The machine is acting up and declining my card. I need you to Zelle me $800. Fast. It's embarrassing to keep them waiting. I stood there, blinking at the white wall of my hallway. You're at lunch? Yes, lunch. A celebration. Ryan's boss is here. Just send the money, Maya. I'll pay you back when the pension check clears. He didn't ask if I was busy. He didn't explain why Ryan, the successful regional manager, couldn't pay the bill. He didn't even say please. He just assumed that I, the daughter with the little hobby job, was sitting around doing nothing, waiting to be useful. He was using my money to pay for a celebratory lunch that I wasn't invited to, honoring a promotion that Ryan probably lied about. Something inside me didn't just break. It evaporated. The guilt, the obligation, the desperate need for approval. It all vanished, leaving behind a cold, hard clarity. No, I said. The silence on the other end was heavy. What did you say? I said, no, Dad. I'm at work. I can't do this right now. Maya, don't be dramatic. It's $800. Do you want your brother to look bad in front of his boss? I hung up. I didn't block his number. I didn't throw the phone. I simply walked back into the conference room, sat at the head of the table, and took command of the crisis. I saved the company $3 million in potential liability damages that afternoon. And for the first time in my life, I let my father figure out his own bill. Section 5. Approved. Locked in. Section 6. Strategic planning. Writing now. Target. 450 to 500 words. Purpose. The family's decline, the company's ascent, and the inevitable collision course via the contract. Rephrased. Strategic planning. Predictably, my family decided that my refusal was just a phase. My mother texted Ryan that Maya is just having a moment and that I was probably hormonal. They assumed I would come crawling back with an apology check within a week. I didn't. June came and went. I missed Father's Day. I missed the 4th of July barbecue. Without my invisible subsidies, their financial facade began to crack. My mother mentioned on a voicemail that they were cutting back on cable because rates went up. Ryan texted me asking if I knew any cheap mechanics because his BMW needed tires he couldn't afford. I read the messages, felt a phantom twinge of guilt, and then deleted them. While their world was shrinking, mine was exploding. Lumina Solutions had just secured a partnership with a massive healthcare conglomerate. We were moving headquarters to a glass and steel campus in the financial district. I was featured on the cover of Inc. magazine under the headline, "The Silent Architects of the Cloud." I bought a copy, framed it, and hung it in my private office. Not for vanity, but as proof that I existed, even if my family refused to see me. Then came August 14th, the day the universes collided. I was in my weekly pipeline review with Elias, my VP of sales. Elias was a shark in a suit, the kind of guy who could sell sand to a desert nomad. He was scrolling through the inbound leads on the smartboard. "Okay, next up," Elias said, tapping the screen. "We got a request for proposal from a boutique firm called Stratton Consulting Group. They're mid-sized, about 50 employees, but they just landed a government contract and need a total cloud migration. It's a messy legacy system, high margin potential, probably a $2 million annual contract." I froze. My coffee cup hovered halfway to my mouth. Stratton Consulting Group, my father's firm, the place where he had worked for 25 years as a senior advisor, a title that meant he shook hands and let other people do the math. "Maya?" Elias asked, noting my silence. "You know them?" I stared at the logo on the screen. I thought about the Sunday dinners. I thought about the coding hobby insults. I thought about the $800 steak lunch. "I know of them," I said, keeping my voice flat. "Who is the point of contact?" Elias checked his notes. "The implementation lead is a guy named Thomas Lin, VP of Operations." My father. The irony was so sharp it almost drew blood. My father, who couldn't figure out how to reset his router, was in charge of vetting a cloud vendor. And he had unknowingly knocked on the door of the daughter he dismissed. I had a choice. I could recuse myself. I could tell Elias to reject the bid. I could run. "Run the standard play," I commanded, setting my coffee down. "Vet them. If they qualify, bring them in for the executive experience. I want them dazzled." Elias grinned. "You got it, boss. I'll set up the site visit for next month." I didn't tell Elias that Thomas Lin was my father. I didn't warn the reception team. I wanted this to happen organically. I wanted him to walk into my world without a warning label. I wanted him to see the empire before he saw the emperor. September 12th was a Tuesday. I remember the date because the sky was a piercing, cloudless blue, the kind of day that makes everything look sharp in high definition. I didn't go down to the lobby. I wasn't going to stand by the door like a welcoming committee. I sat in my office on the 34th floor, facing a bank of monitors. One of them displayed the high-resolution feed from the security cameras in the atrium. At 1:58 p.m., the revolving doors spun. 3 men walked in. Leading the pack was Director Vance, the head of Stratton Consulting. He wore a suit that cost more than my car and walked with the swagger of a man used to billing $500 an hour. Behind him was a junior associate, glued to his tablet. And trailing in the rear, adjusting his tie nervously, was Thomas Lin. My father looked small. That was my first thought. In our dining room, he loomed large, a titan of industry who dictated the mood of the house. But here, in the cavernous, 40-foot marble atrium of the Lumina building, he looked like a tourist. He was craning his neck, staring at the suspended light sculpture that hung from the ceiling, his mouth slightly open. I watched Elias, my VP of sales, approach them. Elias was smooth, professional, and lethal. He shook hands with Vance, nodded to the associate, and then turned to my father. I zoomed in on the feed. My father offered a weak smile, patting his pockets as if looking for a security badge he didn't have. "Welcome to Lumina," Elias's voice came through the audio feed. "We're excited to show you the infrastructure. Before we head up to the server farm, we usually start with the Legacy Corridor. It gives you a sense of our DNA." They moved toward the west wall. This was the trap. The Legacy Corridor isn't just a hallway, it's a multimedia experience. It's a 60-foot stretch of black glass with embedded 8K screens that tell the story of the company's exponential rise. It flashes data points in neon blue. 2018, Foundation. 2020, first Fortune 500 contract. 2022, global expansion. 2023, $90 million ARR. I watched my father walk past the screens. He was reading the numbers. I saw him stop at the 2021 panel, which displayed our acquisition of a smaller data firm for $12 million. He frowned, leaning in, as if checking for a typo. He looked back at Vance, muttering something, probably about how these tech valuations are a bubble. Then they reached the end of the corridor. The rotunda. In the center of the rotunda stands a single, monolithic pillar of white stone. On it is a digital display, 5 feet tall, that cycles through the company's core values. And permanently etched into the stone beside it is the founder's statement, accompanied by a laser-engraved portrait. The group stopped. Elias gestured to the pillar. "This is the core of our philosophy," Elias said, rehearsed and proud. "Our CEO wrote this code of ethics back when the company was just a single server in a basement. We haven't changed a word since." Director Vance nodded appreciatively. "Impressive stability. Who is the CEO again? I know the name is Lynn, same as you, Thomas. Any relation?" He chuckled, clearly making a joke. My father laughed, a nervous, dismissive sound. "Oh no, Lynn is a common name. My daughter is in computers too, actually, but she's more of a freelancer. IT support, that sort of thing." Elias froze. On the screen, I saw Elias's head snap toward my father. He looked confused, then offended. "Freelancer," Elias repeated. "Yes," my father continued, emboldened by the attention. "She dabbles. You know how millennials are. But this," he gestured to the atrium, "this is real business." Elias took a half step back. He looked at the etched portrait on the stone pillar. Then he looked at Thomas Lynn. "Mr. Lynn," Elias said, his voice dropping an octave, "I think you should look at the display." My father blinked. "What?" "The display," Elias pointed. "The founder." My father turned. He adjusted his glasses. He looked at the laser-engraved face on the white stone. It was a photo taken for Forbes last year. I was wearing a black turtleneck, looking straight into the camera, unsmiling, powerful. My father stared. He leaned in. He pulled his head back. He leaned in again. The color drained from his face so fast it looked like a special effect. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. He looked exactly like a fish pulled out of the water, gasping, thrashing, drowning in air. "That's..." He pointed a shaking finger at the stone. "That's Maya." Director Vance frowned. "What did you say?" "That's Maya," my father whispered, his voice cracking. "That's my daughter." Vance laughed again, but it was uneasy this time. "Thomas, stop joking. This is the CEO of a $100 million enterprise. You just said your daughter fixes computers." "No," my father said. He spun around, looking wild-eyed at the atrium, at the security guards, at the 60-foot screens. That is her face. That is her name. Maya Lin. Elias stepped in, cold as ice. Yes, that is Ms. Lin. She founded Lumina 5 years ago. She wrote the core kernel code herself. She is the majority shareholder and the chair of the board. Elias paused, letting the words hit like bullets. Are you telling us you didn't know? The silence in the lobby was absolute. The junior associate had stopped tapping on his tablet. Director Vance was staring at my father with a look of dawning horror. Not because of the relationship, but because he was realizing that his VP of operations was so disconnected from reality that he didn't know his own daughter was a tech tycoon.
My father stammered. She's upstairs, Elias said, checking his watch. She's waiting for you in the executive suite. My father looked up at the glass ceiling, as if he could see through the 34 floors of concrete and steel, straight to where I was sitting. He looked terrified. I took a sip of my coffee. Send them up, I whispered to the empty room. The elevator ride to the 34th floor takes exactly 18 seconds. I know because I timed it when we built the building. For my father, stuck in a steel box with a boss who now thought he was either a liar or an idiot, those 18 seconds must have felt like a geological era. My assistant, a sharp-witted woman named Chloe, opened the double-glass doors to my suite. I didn't stand up immediately. I finished typing a sentence on my laptop, hit enter, and then rose slowly. The room is designed to intimidate. Floor-to-ceiling glass offering a panoramic view of the skyline, a conference table made of reclaimed driftwood, and the Inc. magazine cover framed on the wall. Director Vance entered first, looking like he was walking into a cathedral. My father followed, dragging his feet. He looked pale, sweaty, and utterly dismantled. Director Vance, I said, projecting my voice across the room. I walked around the desk, hand extended. I'm Maya Lin. Thank you for coming in. Vance shook my hand with a grip that was 20% firmer than necessary, the handshake of a man trying to regain his footing. Ms. Lin, he said, his voice tight. This is an unexpected honor. Your facility is world-class. We pride ourselves on efficiency, I said smoothly. Then I turned to my father. He was standing 6 feet away, clutching his briefcase like a shield. His eyes were darting around the room, taking in the expensive art, the ergonomic furniture, the sheer volume of success that surrounded him. He looked at me, and I saw the struggle in his throat. He wanted to be the dad. He wanted to say, "Sweetheart." He wanted to ask why I hadn't told him. But he couldn't. Because in this room, he wasn't my father. He was a vendor pitching a contract to a client who could buy and sell his entire firm before lunch. Mr. Lin, I said. I didn't offer a hug. I offered a hand. He stared at my hand for a second too long before taking it. His palm was damp. Maya, he croaked. I've reviewed the Stratton proposal, I interrupted, cutting off whatever stammering apology he was about to attempt. I turned back to Vance. The migration timeline you've outlined is aggressive. I like aggressive. But Lumina has strict compliance protocols. If we proceed, your team will need to undergo Level 3 security clearance. I looked back at my father. That includes background checks on all senior staff. We need to ensure there are no hidden liabilities. My father flinched as if I'd slapped him. Vance nodded vigorously. Of course, absolutely. We have full transparency. He shot a glare at my father, the subtext clear. Unlike some people. Good, I said. I checked my watch. I have a board meeting in 10 minutes, so I'll have Elias handle the technical deep dive on the 4th floor. I walked over to my desk and picked up a file. The Stratton file. I handed it to Vance, not my father. We're interested, Director, but please understand that Lumina is built on precision.
We don't tolerate ambiguity. If we work together, I expect the same level of honesty from your team that I demand from mine. Vance took the file like it was a holy relic. You have my word, Miss Lynn. Excellent. I smiled. A shark smile, devoid of warmth. Elias is waiting for you by the elevators. Vance turned to leave, ushering the junior associate out. My father lingered. He stood in the doorway, a silhouette against the bright lights of the hallway. He looked at me one last time, his eyes pleading, begging for a crack in the armor. He wanted the daughter who paid for the roof. He wanted the girl who quietly fixed the problems. Maya, he whispered. Sunday dinner? I looked at him. I looked at the man who had mocked my coding hobby while eating food paid for by my coding empire. I'm booked this Sunday, I said coolly. Have your secretary reach out to Chloe. She manages my calendar. And then I sat down and turned back to my screens. The digital bombardment began before their elevator even hit the lobby. By 5 p.m., I had 14 missed calls from my father, 3 from my mother, and a string of texts from Ryan that ranged from WTF to "Is this a joke?" to "Call me right now." I didn't answer any of them. I drove home in silence, ordered takeout from the most expensive sushi place in the city, and sat on my floor, finally allowing myself to exhale. I listened to the voicemails in chronological order. They told a fascinating story of the 5 stages of grief. Voicemail 1. Dad, 3:12 p.m. Maya, pick up the phone. You embarrassed me in front of Director Vance. Why would you hide this? Do you have any idea how bad I look? Call me. Voicemail 2. Mom, 4:30 p.m. Sweetheart, Ryan says you own the building? I don't understand. Are you in trouble? Is it legal? Please tell me you aren't laundering money. Voicemail 3. Dad, 6:45 p.m. I looked you up. 92 million in revenue? Maya, I asked you for $800 for lunch. Why didn't you say anything? We're family. We could have been part of this. Voicemail 4. Dad, 9:20 p.m. This one was different. He sounded older. His voice was thick, likely from too much whiskey. I realized something tonight. The roof, the vet bill, Ryan's credit card. That wasn't freelance money, was it? You've been carrying us, and I've been treating you like a child. A long pause. I'm sorry. I didn't reply. I didn't feel the need to absolve them. The next morning, the professional consequences arrived. Elias walked into my office with a smirk. Update on the Stratton account, he said. Director Vance called first thing. He's removing Thomas Lynn from the implementation team. I raised an eyebrow. Oh? Yeah. Vance said he needs a lead who has full transparency with the client. He felt that Thomas's inability to know his own daughter was the CEO suggested a lack of situational awareness. They're putting a senior partner on it instead. My father had been sidelined on the biggest contract of his career because he hadn't bothered to ask his daughter what she did for a living. It was a poetic justice so sharp it felt scripted. I kept the contract. Lumina isn't in the business of turning down revenue just because my family is messy. We onboarded Stratton Consulting 2 weeks later. I treat them like any other client. Efficiently, coldly, and profitably. My mother still sends texts. She sends photos of expensive houses she thinks I should buy. She hints that Ryan is looking for a career pivot and would be great in sales. I don't respond to the hints. I don't send checks. I don't fix roofs. The Bank of Maya is permanently closed. But Lumina Solutions? We're just getting started. I've learned that there are 2 ways to be powerful in this world. You can be like my brother Ryan, loud, flashy, and desperate for everyone to look at you. Or you can be like an iceberg, quiet, mostly hidden, and capable of sinking anything that crashes into you. For years, I thought my silence was a weakness. I thought my inability to brag at the dinner table meant I was failing. But I realize now that silence was my strategy. While they were talking, I was building. While they were spending money they didn't have to impress people who didn't care, I was compounding my assets. My father still has his assistant regional manager son, and he can have him. I have my peace. I have a view of the city I conquered. And I have the satisfaction of knowing that the next time someone dismisses a quiet person in the corner as just a freelancer, they might want to check the name on the building first. If you enjoyed this story of silent revenge, please destroy that like button. It helps the channel grow. And tell me in the comments, do you move in silence? Or do you let your success make the noise? Type Silent Empire if you're building something the world isn't ready for yet. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories of justice served cold. I'll see you in the next one.